Mhm. All right, EXPs, thank you guys for tuning in tonight for our very special pop-up interview with the CPA dude, Tony Hong. We are going to get started here shortly, but I just want to throw out a couple house rules before we do. First off, this is a open dialogue. This is a chance for you guys to ask all of your questions and comment on anything tax related. That's why we have Tony here, and I'm so thankful and appreciative of him for taking the time to do this live interview with us tonight and to just provide all of his insight and all of his knowledge on all things tax related. We have a lot of information to get through tonight. I'm sure you guys are going to have your questions as well. So make sure you're dropping those in the comments as we go, and we'll do our best to go ahead and get to them as they come up. In the event that we don't get to them, then we'll definitely come back to those questions as well. Also, this video is going to be on my YouTube channel. It's simultaneously being filmed live there as well. After we conclude here on Facebook, I'm going to be uploading the video. Well, it'll stay on and live on my YouTube channel, but on my YouTube channel, I'm also going to have links to 6 different resources, free resources that you guys could take advantage of. Everything from tax spreadsheets when you're looking at your expenses to 6 different resources that Tony provided about, the gig industry and working as a EXP, to how to file your taxes for free, to the IRS's guide for the gig economy, and also a link to a free chat and consultation and a discount that you'll be able to take advantage of if you would like Tony and his team to help you with filing your taxes. So we are going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to let Tony go ahead and have the floor and just introduce himself and talk a little bit about his history and background with taxes.
All right. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me on today. Super excited, talk about taxes. I'm probably the only dude that's this excited to talk about taxes, but my name's Tony Hong. Originally grew up in Minnesota, went to college at the University of Minnesota, studied accounting there, also information systems. Got my CPA shortly after that. But then, kind of during that time, kind of growing up, mom, dad had like a little mom and pop restaurant, a little Chinese restaurant, and always got sucked into doing their books. Along with doing their books, kind of just came with the taxes with it too. So kind of been always interested in the finances and accounting side of things. So that's how I kind of pursued accounting and taxes. Little history there is just worked at a Big Four company, KPMG, and also at Uber here too. So over in San Francisco now. Took the trek over here and, enjoying the weather and, enjoying the diversity that has to offer out here.
So you working at Uber, and this, a lot of the fact that a lot of people that work for Uber and Lyft are independent contractors, and we work in the promotional gig industry. So a lot of the things that you saw at Uber, and I want you to talk about, your experience there, correlate directly with what we as EXPs, experiential marketing professionals, go through. So just talk about some of the things that are similar with Uber and working in the promotional model or the promotional world.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, just very very similar. So things that highlight first, right? You should be getting your 1099s from there. Way to report your incomes. Also, one other thing to note too is like sometimes you may or may not get your 1099 from that company. It's kind of dependent on who's assisting with their taxes. So kind of making sure that you have like a good, little tracker spreadsheet. There's free products out there that help track, Excel. I mean, if you want to upgrade to QuickBooks, Xero, Wave apps, all these are different ways to track everything. Even something as simple as Mint, everything gets deposited through, your bank account. Track it all there. Just got to update your tags. So one thing to note too is kind of seeing that could apply to, the EXPs is how much are you really making? How much are you spending related to the activity? And really getting your books in place. So I'm not sure how many people got, the shoebox with the receipts and whatnot, but having some system in place is good.
And I talk about that in the group about 2 weeks ago. I posted my tax spreadsheet that I use, an Excel spreadsheet, where I itemize all my expenses throughout the year instead of having to keep a shoebox of receipts. But like Tony said, there's Expensify, there's QuickBooks, and there's different programs out there that, EXPs you could take advantage of to help you on a digital platform to be able to record and monitor all of your expenses, because it'll make, I'm pretty sure Tony can attest to this, his life easier when he's filing your taxes and having to go and sort through all of your expenses.
Oh yeah, yep, you got it there. Yeah, so like even Mint is like kind of one of the easiest ways of like getting a dedicated bank account with a debit card. So every time you get paid out, it goes right to that bank account. Anytime you use any expenses, if you have gas or you have a plane ticket, any sort of that expense, use that debit card. So then when it comes to tax time during this time of the year, at least it's all in one place. It might not be categorized right because Mint picks up a pretty good job. I think it does 80% pretty well from what I see, and
Mm-hmm,
20% are kind of up in the air, doesn't understand it.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, so definitely having some software in place, especially with the day and age now here, and
mm-hmm.
leveraging the tools that you can have.
Mhm. So let's talk a little bit about this AB5 law that California is trying to implement. A lot of people in the experiential marketing industry worry that if that law goes into effect, it's going to affect our industry as EXPs. What is the AB5 law, and what tax ramifications does it have for EXPs?
Yeah, yeah. So the AB5 law, just went into it's actually enacted and effective as of 1/1/2020,
Oh,
and so yeah, it's live already.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's live already. However, it's so like with all new laws, it's still gray. Companies are still trying to figure out are are they subject to it? So it's really affecting companies first. So let's start at the companies.
Okay.
First, they need to figure out are they subject to the AB5 law.
Mhm,
AB5 law kind of has a ABC test here with their contractors, independent contractors before they can classify them as employees.
okay.
The the ABC ABC test here is, does are they how much control do they have over that employee,
Mhm,
a contractor?
mhm,
You know, is the work being done? Is it not the same as what the ordinary course of business is?
mhm,
So, for example, Uber here is like, is the independent contractor, are they doing something for Uber that is not in their normal course of business? So, for example, Uber's normal ordinary course of business is driving transportation here, and is that independent contractor doing something that's not that? So in that case, no, right? So all Uber drivers are you're doing the same thing of what the company's made up for.
mhm,
Versus, for example, say if you have a nail salon and you hire an independent contractor to
mhm.
come in and paint your walls. It's quite different. Normally you're offering, beauty services, but this person you have construction services.
Okay.
Yep. And then part C of the test is, is that independent contractor actually doing work that's like what they would normally do? So, is this independent contractor actually doing construction stuff versus that's what they're normally known for, right? It's like,
Mhm,
or I'm the CPA dude, I'm doing CPA services, not doing construction stuff.
mhm,
So that's kind of the ABC test and how it kind of affects companies.
mhm,
And really for the EXPs and kind of independent contractors out here, things to note is that first off, do you want to be an employee of this company?
okay.
A lot of people pursue the gig economy here, just to have that flexibility, that freedom.
Mhm,
Like, oh, okay, I don't need to show up exactly at 10 or 9 and go home at 5.
mhm,
So, because once the company has control, they're going to be able to set your hours. Can you go work for other companies at the same time? Sometimes companies have a limit on who you can work for. So you're really losing some control if you become an employee, but there's benefits too, right?
mhm,
You get health is usually offered, withholding, even something as silly and simple as withholding your taxes for you. Um, and now they're subject to it.
mhm,
So it's really kind of up to, so first it's like, does your company hire you as an independent contractor? And then two, I mean, if you want to pursue being an employee for that, you can always ask them, the company, of like, hey, AB5 now, we're doing, I meet the ABC test. I think I should be an employee, but it's really up to, the independent contractor of, do they want, someone to, work. Do you want to work for the man again? I guess is what it is, because it definitely seems like everyone wants that flexibility nowadays.
Yeah. And do you think, and excuse Tony, he's getting over a little bit of laryngitis, so he may be grabbing water from time to time.
Thank you.
But but do you think that other states are going to follow suit with this AB5 law? And for EXPs like myself who may work, because I'm based in Atlanta, but I may work an event in California for an agency in California. But again, I filed my taxes in Georgia. Am I subject to the same laws and ramifications just for that gig, for that event or that tour for California when I file my taxes for that company?
Oh yeah, so kind of like to the, that part, is like for you to go over to California here is that you're an independent contractor there, and if that company, so there's also exclusions for the 85 of like what companies were affected.
Okay.
So kind of what are some examples of some companies that would hire for your services?
So like experiential marketing agencies and staffing agencies. So more of the promo the gig agencies that hire EXPs on a contractual temporary basis.
Hmm.
Because a lot of EXPs don't work. They work in different states, different cities. They travel like I do for months on end. So they may not be based in California. Their residence, their home address, and where they file their taxes may not be in California. But there are a lot of experiential marketing and staff agencies that are based in California that may hire them. And when you fill out your W-9s or your W-4, your pre-employment paperwork, you are of course putting your home address, but because that company is based in California, when you get it to 99, like around this time of the year, and it's over $600, right? So of course you have to pay taxes and pay taxes on that money. Are you subject to the same tax, the AB5 law, if that company is based in Cali?
Oh yeah, so yeah, if it's just staffing, there's a carve out for it. So it really depends on who you're contracting with.
Okay.
So, anyways, even regardless of that, they won't have further obligations under with hiring independent contractors or employees from out of state anyways. And
Okay.
then for your own taxes, you won't have any issues here. It's
Okay.
more so if we're saying if it wasn't a staffing agency and that it was just a different company that fell into like for example like film or something, hiring you as
Mhm.
um, independent contractor for acting, and then you
Mhm.
get that you would become a W2 W4 instead of having a 1099. But
Okay.
regardless, you just have an out of state filing obligation, a non-resident return.
Okay.
So it won't change you too much on the EXP side, so it's just getting
Okay.
1099s.
Okay, good. Okay. So we got a question that came in the group really quick. I want to address it. From Richard. Hey guys, what do we do with companies that are no longer considering EXPs as independent contractors and are now paying us as W-2 employees?
Oh yeah, that's the big thing. Yeah, if you're here, so one is the wage is my initial concern, right? Is like, hey, before, you know, wages were maybe a little bit higher because like, oh, they didn't have to pay employment taxes on your behalf. But now it's gonna be, oh, hey, we're subject to AB5. Okay, cool, you're our employee. It's minimum wage might be in a topic. They're going to cut pays because they have their own personal expenses, to cover on their end because they have employees now. So
Mm.
that's like one big thing to consider is kind of like the wages, negotiating your pay because everyone here needs to feed the family at the end of the day.
Hmm.
That's my biggest thing there too. So other things to kind of note too is kind of the benefits that you may get from it. And it's really dependent on first, like, hey, do you want to work and be tied down to this company?
Yeah.
So it's really dependent on the person.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay, good to know. So we're gonna take a step back and go to a elementary question. And for those who may not know the difference between a 1099 and a W-2 employee, can you just explain that really quickly?
Oh yeah, yeah. So W2 employee, you would have set hours by your employer. You also have, your employment taxes withheld on your paycheck. You get, your paycheck every, depending on your company, 1 week, 2 weeks,
Mhm.
depending on that.
Mhm.
You get your W-4 at the end of the year, W-2. You always got to have those out by that company versus, 1099. You can have, a whole bunch of 1099s depending on how many gigs you take with all the different companies. And the big thing
Mhm.
here is that employment taxes are not withheld. So, your income taxes are not withheld. And it's the big thing that really needs to kind of be well known of like saying, hey, if you made $1,000, like don't go as a 1099 contractor, don't go spend that $1,000 right away. In all reality, it's probably going to boil down to $700 after all your taxes come. So I've seen a lot of cases of when you help people do your taxes and if, April 15th comes, you filed their taxes. I'm like, oh, hey, I think, let's see here. It's like, you owe $2,000. And they're like, I don't got $2,000. And I'm like, where'd it go?
Yeah.
Because some people are not aware that, income taxes were never withheld when you're a 1099 contractor going at it versus, working just Foot Locker, getting your normal check, have your taxes like, oh, okay, I should get some money back this year.
Hmm. So, like in our industry as EXPs, we tend to work for 15, 20, 25 different companies. So some companies may, 1099 us and give us a 1099. Some may W-2, W-4 us, and we have those taxes taken out at the end of the year. Around this time, usually, what is it, January 31st, companies have to send out time to
Hmm.
send out all of the 1099s or W-2s. So we're getting in the mail, and EXPs, you could probably attest to this, 10, 15, 20 different 1099s and W-2s that we have to then, make sure that we account for and take to our CPA or file ourselves. So what is some advice that you can have for someone who may have, and let me go back and say this, there are EXPs who work in this industry part time who still have a full time or part time job where taxes are taken out, and then they do, promotional gig work on the side. So they have a mix of both. You have a great mix of different people that work in this industry. So, what is your advice to the EXPs like myself who may have a mix of 1099s and W-2s? Is it best to have a mix of both, or more W-2s than 1099s, or more 1099s than W-2s? Does it work? Does one work better in your favor as an EXP?
Oh yeah, so loaded question. I like it. I like it. Yeah. So I think let's start back at
Hmm.
let's take the first scenario. Right,
Hmm.
you're only 1099s. Full time EXPs. No normal W-2 job where you're tied to set sort of hours. So
Hmm.
if you have a 1099, this kind of goes back to why the bookkeeping so important here is
Hmm.
how much did you actually get paid out from that job, like through your bank account. So if they cut you a check for 600 and then that 1099 states like 800, then you have a $200 difference here.
Okay.
So the $200 difference is like what I want to bring up is that if you just take all the 1099s and you just go punch it into your software here, you're actually overpaying on taxes
Okay.
because you only got 600, right? So sometimes they'll report it on the gross basis. The
Mm.
The company will report on your gross basis. So
Okay.
that's why you really want to keep maybe like even a simple spreadsheet of like, hey, these are everything I made, and then next is like what I received on 1099 and see if those matched or not.
Okay.
Yeah. So for 1099s, that's like a very like thing I can't stress enough is you don't like want to under or overpay. I mean, there's only one. You gotta be perfect on this, right?
Yeah.
So that's for the 1099s, solely 1099 employees or contractors here. And then we
Hmm.
move into how about if you're just, you know, W-2, simple, right? You've had your taxes withheld all year. Oh, I guess let's rewind, right? And then no income taxes have been withheld on your behalf the whole
Okay.
entire year.
Okay.
And so make sure, every time you get, $1,000 paycheck as a 1099, store away 300 bucks of that into like a high interest savings account. There's all these. What do I use? Like My Savings Direct is one of them. I think you
Hmm.
get like almost 1.8% interest on it, and then
Hmm.
just let that bake. And so when it comes tax time, you won't have a surprise. You actually have the money.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's one thing to bring back. So now if we go back to W-2 now, is that you've had your income taxes withheld the whole year.
Mhm.
So you really won't have any, like, no surprises really.
Okay.
Unless you'll be pretty close ballpark wise.
Mhm.
And then lastly, the last scenario here is that
A
if you're
mix.
mixed, yeah, so the mixed ones here really kind of get a little bit more balanced, because it's like your W-2 job, you've had income taxes withheld. 1099, you have not had income taxes withheld. So at least you have some withheld.
Mhm. Mhm.
Once again, just make sure you just store away that extra income tax money, self-employment tax money in that bank account. But just really finding, the person or yourself understanding how do these all flow back to your income tax return, or having the software that can handle, you know, the numerous amounts here.
Okay.
So the biggest things is the note is the income taxes that are kind of different, right? You go start at having zero withheld, and you have like mostly withheld, and you have like partially withheld. So that's like the big thing to know of, like, how this all flows in when you have a mix of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when you have a mix and you are looking at, okay, how, because the main thing with Uncle Sam and taxes is, especially as EXPs, we want to know how can we not have to pay Uncle Sam? What deductions can we write off? What can't we write off? Is it good to show a huge loss on our taxes? And I know this is a loaded question, so I'm gonna just go back to the first one on deductions. What um, are some things that we can write off? And I'll let you start, and then I'll come in and chime in with some common things that we have in our industry, and you can tell me yay or nay if these things are included.
Oh yeah, definitely. So deductions wise, let's just start as, 1099. You're an independent contractor. Most people are, file as a sole proprietor, pick it up on their own income taxes here.
Mhm.
And so you're operating your own business, and, you're kind of in the business of providing the service, and any expenses that
Mhm.
are incurred with providing the service would
Mhm.
be deductible, is kind of the general rule,
And
the
then,
blanket answer.
I'm sorry, let me interrupt you. If you're working under your social, so working and filling out a 1099 as a sole proprietor under your social, your personal social security, not as a business, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So go ahead. Just wanted to clarify that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Definitely. So then, yeah. So say for example, you're flying out to, Seattle. You're over in Florida. So that plane ticket to get over, there to perform your job. The gas, or the mileage associated to get to the airport and back. Any transportation while you're there, because you're literally there just working.
Mhm.
Yeah, so travel's one. Kind of go back to the gas thing too. So there's kind of two ways of kind of deducting car expenses.
Okay.
There's the actual method, of where you actually keep every single, expense that was incurred, your actual expenses of, like, have a car payment, have an oil change, what else? Have gas, all those,
Mhm.
versus, the standard way of taking 58 cents per mile.
Mhm.
And one other thing to notice too is having some good software of, like, whenever you're driving for business purposes,
Mhm.
kind of like Mile IQ is my recommendation,
Mhm.
of just tracking all those miles, and then kind of taking, the bigger of two, right? You're doing the train A starts at 11, train B starts at 2. When do they meet? And then which one surpasses the other one is the best method to take.
Okay.
Yeah, usually what I've seen is always, like, if you don't have a car payment, the standard way of 58 cents per mile is the easy, like, it comes out higher.
Mhm.
Versus if you do have car payments, then, the actual tends to come out higher.
Okay.
So it's like taxes, everything's specific to the person.
Okay. So we have different scenarios and different EXPs that take different opportunities. For the EXP who works in our industry as a traveling EXP, so you might be based in Atlanta, but you travel and you drive your car to to Florida, to Alabama, to Tennessee, to Texas, to execute events. You're saying that they could write off gas, Any car expenses? Can they write off maintenance on their vehicles, like oil changes? I think you said that right. Oil changes, anything to do with the vehicle, they can write off. They can write off hotel, like if they have to pay for a hotel, and any food costs. Correct? Like if the company does or doesn't provide a per diem, they can write that off. Correct?
Yeah, and then really note to the reimbursed expenses. That's
Okay.
a topic that no, like say if you had to spend hotel, it was like $200, but then the company gave back that 200, you can't take that.
And that was my next question, because then the other scenario is EXPs like myself who are on tour for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months at a time. And usually on those programs, you have a company card, or you have a per diem, like a stipend that's given to you to cover your hotel and food. In the event that you are given a company credit card to cover your gas, company expenses, or your hotels, or even your food, and you're using a company credit card, can you write off like your hotel expenses or your food expenses at the end of the year if the company has given you that card?
Oh, that one you can't. Yeah, because usually it's just whoever gets the deduction, that it's kind of that's the person who gets it. So companies, since they have this all on their card and then they're going to pay off the credit card anyways, then the company will take all those expenses. So you can't take that yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you are working for that company, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, as an LLC,
hmm
and you are using your personal credit card, they gave you the option to either use your card or the company's card, and you chose, okay, I'm gonna use my card to pay for gas, to pay for my food and my hotel, and get reimbursed by them. Can you write those expenses off on your taxes?
So, oh, the company still reimburses you, but you're using your own credit card, is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it nets to zero when you do your profit and loss. So it comes out to zero. So no, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's like you would have yours, like say you blew $800 and you wrote it all down as your expenses, and then the company comes back and you get $800 reimbursement, and then so it nets out to zero. So then when it comes to tax time, you just need to multiply your taxable income.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So other things to note too when you said, yeah, if you guys are in Atlanta, you're driving all over too. Tolls too. Don't forget about tolls.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, just something to note there. And then kind of with all these deductions too, is one thing I want to note is that substantiation is the big thing here. So if you were ever to get audited, audits are just to make sure that you're doing your taxes right. It's not a bad thing. People always think it's like, oh, I'm getting audited, it's the end of the world. It's not at all. It's just to make sure that every taxpayer is doing it right, businesses are doing it right. Just the
Mhm.
normal course of business here. So substantiation is the big thing. So say if you're taking like 20 grand of expenses here and then you just slap it on your return, but you don't have the receipts to prove it out. When it comes to that time, it's, well, first off, you know, your CPA, your EA, your paid preparer might not even give it to you. They're like, nope, you got nothing. I can't substantiate anything.
Mm.
But what if you prepare your taxes yourself and you still write it off? I mean, you wouldn't be lying, right? It's not like you made up the number. It's
Right.
unless it's like a smooth, even 20,000, then we got bigger issues. But
Mhm.
just making sure you have a receipt system. So having those apps that click or take a picture of a receipt and tie back to that. That's like the best way because I usually download into like a nice zip package. But if you don't want to spend the money on the software, most people got camera phones nowadays, so just click a picture and then just like toss it into a folder. And then if you were ever to need it or, you didn't have your books in place, go back and just click it open and read it up. I know I was using, what was it, Expense Tracker back in the day? They had OCR. So
Mm.
like it wasn't bad, but like they could read the receipt and try to input in the fields. So there's a lot of fun tools out there. Kind of the nerdier side of me here coming out, but yeah, there's a lot of tools at your disposal. But that's the big thing of the crackdown substantiation. I read a lot of news with the kind of like all the tax news that's going on, and that the IRS has just kind of really, they've noticed that you got all these influencers nowadays, and then they take a lot of like travel expenses, flights, just because they're going here, going there,
Mm-hmm.
and there's been a crackdown on that because there's no invoice, there's no receipt behind it. They're just slapping it on the return.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then if you can't prove it, because at the end of the day, the taxpayer has the burden of proof.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you need to prove out that this business expense or this flight was real by providing a receipt? If not, you would owe tax on. You'd be disallowed that expense, and you would owe tax on that.
Mm.
Yeah. So, as we're talking about deductions here.
Yeah. And another thing, let's go back to this thing you said about auditing, because the IRS um, can audit you, and it's not a bad thing. Up to how many years after you file your taxes can the IRS come back and audit you?
There's 3. Mm-hmm.
3. So you should save after like 2020, well, 2019, after you file your taxes this year for 2019, you should save all your receipts, your physical receipts, anything from that year for 3 years.
The look back period. It depends if they think it's fraudulent. I think it opens up complete, like it goes back. It doesn't, like there's no time period.
Mhm.
But the safe number is always sevens, because it's like okay, normal audit, and then the next part's like, oh, it's like the next level before it becomes like fraud. I forgot the term it's called, but 7 years is the best way to keep your records.
So,
But I wouldn't assume anyone's doing fraud stuff here. Everyone's a good taxpayer here.
okay. And then you mentioned the receipts. So is the IRS still old school where they require the physical receipts? I know you said like the digital with Expensify and everything. But is that like if I got audited today and I showed them my Expensify with all of those receipts, is that suffice? Will that suffice um, for tallying all of my expenses that I have, that they may be questioning?
Oh yeah, you'll be totally fine with that. Just have your books and records in place will be fine. And usually, a lot of CPAs and EAs, they won't unless you like show them it. They usually don't put it on the return for you.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna start going through these questions. We got a lot of questions here.
Oh, okay, sounds good. All right, let's let it rip.
Jamon wants to know, I just got my W-2 and 1099 forms from companies in the mail. Some were filed when I used to live in Alabama, and some are in Florida, where I live now. How can I file them all just in Florida?
So he lives in Florida, or he or she lives in Florida.
He lives in Florida, but he used to live in Alabama. So he has a mix of 1099 and W-2s from Alabama and Florida. And he wants to know, how can he file them all in just Florida? Can he do that?
Oh no, is the short answer. But so pretty much depending on what his 2019 residence was, that would be his home state, and then you would file a non-resident return in the other state, depending. I'm not sure where he resides, but Florida has no income tax, so yeah.
Okay.
So that's the positive side of things. But yeah,
Okay.
you can't just slap it all under one state.
Okay. Okay. Good. Richard had a question. When reporting, can I itemize as a W-2 employee like we are able to do as a 1099 independent contractor? Can he itemize?
So with so there's itemized. So yeah, actually, this is really good. So if we kind of just take it back to like the 101, there's like the standard deductions, and
Mhm.
then there's the itemized deductions, and then a close cousin is the deductions related to being a sole proprietor.
Okay.
So let's start at the standard versus the itemized deductions.
Mm-hmm.
So the standard deductions 12,200 versus itemized deductions are everything that is allowable to be itemized. So, for example, home mortgage, interest, property tax, health, kind of those are the primary drivers that send you past that 12,200 mark.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since the tax reform, though, a lot of people are having a hard time overcoming the standard deduction.
Okay.
So I've seen a lot of people just take the standard deduction now because they don't have enough itemized expenses to,
Mm-hmm.
pass that amount, especially since property tax has been limited to $10,000 now.
Mm-hmm.
So that takes care of like standardized versus itemized. So to answer his question, right? Yes, you can still take itemized deductions, and then that is what you would take if it's greater than that standard deduction.
Okay.
So that answers that part. And then the second part here is what I want to just like make it clear is that itemized deductions for your personal on your W-2 personal is different from deductions from your 1099 sole proprietor LLC gig.
Okay.
So one's like treated as business expenses versus itemized deductions is, you take the higher of the two.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Someone said, what about moving deductions? Can you deduct that on your taxes if you're moving from state to state?
That one, I'm pretty sure that one got phased out with the tax reform.
Okay.
But no, that's a good one. Let me get back to you on that one. I'm like 85% sure, but let me write that one down.
Okay. So Andre will have an answer for you. I'll post the answer for you in the group tomorrow.
Sweet.
And let's talk about uniform. So a lot of EXPs with us working different um, events, we have to have a certain uniform: black pants, black shoes, dress shoes, button-down shirts, hair, accessories, makeup, all this stuff, right? Can you write off uniforms and clothing that you have to buy to execute an event? Can you write off vanity things like your hair that you have to have done, or your nails, or makeup? Does that stuff classify under deductions?
Yeah, so deductions wise, yeah, this is kind of now this kind of get a little kind of wide sensitive area here, but kind of a good general rule of thumb is that, is it like was it necessary to perform the job and do the job and something that you cannot wear outside, on a normal day without looking, like a clown or something. So
Hmm.
that's kind of the general rule and something to think about. So say if I had like, you know, a big coat parka and it had a big slap of label of like the CPA dude and or actually probably be like the fishing dude, and this big jacket is to keep warm and it's got branding on it for that company, easy, give me that. It gets a lot more gray on like, you know, some people try to swing the suits, but
Hmm.
the suits kind of you can always use it, professional clothing you can use it at other occasions. So
Okay.
that's kind of disallowed here, but you need to think about, is this a requirement from the event that you have like this t-shirt or with shoes, protective shoes, boots for this job. So did the job require you to have it, and can you not recycle it to use that in your normal ordinary life is kind of like how I would guide it.
Okay. Okay. That's good.
Mhm.
Someone said about the moving. Someone said the tax reform killed it because I tried to claim it in a move to Atlanta.
Oh, cool. Oh, nice. Well, unfortunate for you, but good for us to know. So thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Someone else said, I've heard that in the event of an audit and you cannot furnish physical receipts, that a credit card statement or bank statement of transactions can suffice in an audit. Is that true?
Yeah, definitely. And then also, I would caveat with the auditor though. So, audits are actually very relational based.
Hmm.
So they're trying to do their job too. So the easier you can make it for them, it's going to benefit you more. But there I have seen like where some people are like, no, I need like the legit receipt, not a regenerated on a bank statement. So it really depends on the auditor and kind of like their mood on that day. To be honest with you.
Mm. Okay, good to
Mhm.
know.
Yeah. So always, if you get another thing too to note too is like, so say, you get some, you see it in the news every year, but a lot of people still fall victim to it. You'll get a call pretending on the IRS and be
Hmm.
like, oh, hey, you
Yeah.
need to, perform these actions XYZ. You
Mhm.
will never get a call from the IRS. They only communicate through the mail.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
So,
Yeah, that's true. So I've gotten those calls too. And EXPs definitely don't fall for that because a lot of identity theft, a lot of things are happening where people's identity is being stolen and your taxes are being done without you knowing. And there's a way that you can go right and let the IRS know that a breach in your identity has been done, and they can give you a PIN. Is that correct? Where you'll have to use a PIN to file your taxes?
yep. You always have to have a pin. Yep.
Okay.
You're personally found.
Okay. And then how do you go about getting that PIN if you want to protect your identity? Do you have to, because I know in Atlanta, you can physically go down to the IRS building and get a PIN, But how about if you live in a city where there's no IRS building? Can you apply for it online and they send it to you, like, and they mail it to you? Like, what's the best way to do that if you want to file your taxes but not, have to worry about your identity being stolen?
Yep, for sure. Yeah, yeah. Like you said already, just if you have a local branch, just go there. Or if everyone don't want a human action, just go right on the IRS website itself there.
Okay, is there a turnaround time if you have to go that route versus going somewhere physical? Generally, how long does it take to get that pin?
It always that one also depends on the processing time of the IRS at that moment. So depends on how backlogged they are. So I've seen it from like 2 to 6 weeks is what I've seen.
Okay, okay,
Yeah. Yeah. So that's like one big thing because I recently read something that was quite the elaborate scam here of like
hmm
where so first we cover the phone, right? Never answer. No phone call from the IRS is real. So
okay.
two, I just read this crazy thing where they um, issued. It looks like just like an IRS letter, and then they give you a check to deposit, and then somehow with that check to deposit, they like access your like information that way, and it's like one way to lure you through. So if you get like a refund check from the IRS and you've never elected for it, because most people just ask for direct deposit into your account anyways,
Mhm.
be aware of that. So the schemes are getting quite elaborate.
And harder
Yeah.
to detect.
Yeah, I was really shocked. I was like, "Wow, okay, the scammers are good now."
So we got some questions, comments coming in. I was told years ago not to write off my khaki pants, nails, hair, etc. So I've always gone with that. Um, if they require specific brand to be utilized for an event and the company does not reimburse, it can be written off as it is required for that job.
Yeah,
So,
because you got a very very valid argument, right? You cannot perform the job without having the clothing there. So that means the majority of the test there. The hard thing there too is sometimes if the argument is saying, you can reuse and recycle them, then it's probably no. So that's kind of like the caveat there.
okay.
Yeah.
And best tips on remembering hidden tax credits and claiming expenses for both 1099s and W-2s.
It was hidden tax credits, and what was the other part?
Um, for remembering hidden tax credits and claiming expenses for both 1099 and W-2. Best tips for that.
Oh, okay. So there's for tax credits, right on the IRS website. There's like a nice checklist. You just Google, IRS credits there, and they have pretty much all the credits laid out there for the normal ordinary taxpayer, right? There's all those crazy ones if you're more into the business side of things. So that's an easy way to be like, okay, hey, checklist all this.
Mhm.
So that's one if you do your tax yourself. Two, if your software has it, usually they charge a little bit more for this of like a walkthrough of every credit to make sure it applies or not. So that kind of covers like the credit side of things, and then the deductions. One thing I want to note: so the deductions, what I've done with some taxpayers clients is that we'll just go through and open. We'll be like, hey man, like give me your last 12 months of bank statements or wherever statements where money flowed out of,
Okay.
and then we'll literally just sit there and just go one by one by one and one and ask what it is,
Yeah.
just because they didn't know that they could take these, but we want to make sure that they maximize and get the full value of it.
Okay.
A little tedious exercise, but once you do it once with the pain, they learn really fast. So that's one good way of just knowing. So sometimes people are just not educated and don't know what they can take.
Okay.
So kind of think about the easy way I think about it is like, hey, I got this gig over here, and then what expenses were related to it, and then just see if they're valid or not. That'd be the easiest way.
Okay. Gotcha.
hmm
Next question. Can I still file my W-2 if the client listed the wrong address? They realized there was a mistake and sent it via email. So can they still file?
Yeah, as long as the numbers are okay, you'll be fine on that part. You can have them reissued it too, though,
Okay.
just so you have your own bases covered.
Mhm.
But yeah, as long as the numbers are accurate, that's the one thing I would also want to say too. Like I've gone over, I think I've pretty much beaten a dead horse about reconciling the differences between your 1099 and the actual cash received. And
Okay.
now for the W-2 also, like, so say if you work 15 bucks an hour, you worked, 40 hours a week and your paycheck is two, every 2 weeks. multiply it out and just redo the calc yourself and see if it's actually right. Sometimes it's a system that does it. If the system has a bug, then it may be wrong. Or hey, if someone's doing this pen paper, they may be wrong too. So that's just one thing I'd say, just to caution yourself. I don't know, just to be cover all everything, because it's you work hard for it. So just
Mhm.
don't over or underpay if you don't have to.
Okay. And then 1099s and W-2. So if we're waiting to like do our taxes, but because we work for so many different agencies, we get so many different 1099s and W-2s. What is the deadline that agencies have and companies have to send out their 1099s and W-2s if I'm waiting, close, it's getting close to April or end of March, and I still haven't received one or two 1099s or W-2s. Um, what should I do? Like, can I call the company and just ask them for their tax ID if I know the amount that I made with them? Is that sufficient to just have their tax ID number and go to my preparer and say, hey, here's their tax ID number. This is how much money I made. Or do I need their physical 1099 or W-2 there to be able to finish my taxes?
Oh no, you'll be fine as long as you have the information. So even if you don't get the 1099, say if it gets lost in the mail, or that firm didn't issue one just because they dropped the ball on it, as long as you know how much you made from it and have some identifying information to put on the return, you'll be covered on there.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then, like if a company, because this has happened to me, if a company sends me a 1099 right now for one amount, and then I file my taxes, and then 2 weeks later, I get a 1099 from that company for a higher amount. Maybe they left off a per diem or a salary, a weekly salary. What is the process to go and get those taxes amended to reflect that correct amount? Like, or should I just wait to next year, or should I, um, like, how should I handle that?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. Oh, you actually took the star word out there. You actually have to amend your return.
Okay.
Yeah. So you have to like pretty much just it's pretty much redoing your return, but it's just the amended version of it now. So it's a little like it's a little bothersome because it's like, oh man, I want to just get my money back right away, but then it's like, oh crap, now I have to redo this again, and then depending on who your tax preparer or yourself is or that software, you just have to pay another fee.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't be bad just to kind of like just especially for 1099s though. One thing to know is like if you know exactly what you made already and you've documented pretty well, you can just let the taxes rip already, 'cause since you know exactly what's going to be, or you can just wait March,
Okay.
just to be safe. Just because I'm seeing a lot of all the interest forms, all the banks that are issuing all their 1098s, so they're putting all the interest right now.
Okay. Questions coming in. If a company has to switch to all W-2 employees versus 1099 independent contractors, what is the average tax an EXP will have deducted on $1,000 check?
Average tax. So depending on what you're filing there, so first you'll have the 7.65% just on employment taxes, and
Okay.
then you have your withholding amounts that are related to your income taxes. So the difference is that you would see now is that the self-employment taxes, instead of paying 15.3% as a 1099, you would just have 7.65% taken out of your check because the employer is responsible for the other 7.65%, and then just your how much income tax you want to withhold. So with the new form now, it states like how much you can have an additional amount of income tax withheld from that employer.
Okay.
So if you're doing these side hustles here of doing like odd jobs or anything like that, and you
Like
don't have
Uber Lyft.
yeah, and you don't have a way to withhold your own income taxes, you can just use your employer to withhold those income taxes.
Okay.
Because the thing you want to note here is there's estimated taxes. These are due quarterly. It's kind of one item that the gig economy workers tend to miss. And then pretty much is what it is if you owe more than $1,000 in tax liability for the year, you have to do these estimated tax payments. Otherwise, there's going to be a penalty when you do file your taxes at April 15th.
Mm.
Yeah,
Okay.
so just something to note. I think reading some survey, I think it said like about almost like 35% of the gig economy workers are not aware of what estimated taxes are, and that they have to file these every quarter. So, because every paycheck your employer's taking some out already, but now that you're your own employer, you have to remit these.
Okay. All right. We got these questions coming in. I'm trying to keep up.
Uh,
Um, on a 1099, if I make under $600, so you work with one company, you made less. Let's say you made $500, and they send you a 1099. Do you have to take it to your tax preparer, or when you're doing your taxes yourself, do you have to claim that money as earned income?
yeah, yeah. So every dime you make should be put into your tax return here. But even if you don't have the proper reporting, just kind of being good corporate taxpayer, I guess, right, or good taxpayer citizen, you should report everything you earn.
Okay.
Mhm.
Even if it's less than $600?
If you work part time and it's less than, I think the most what it's pretty much a standard deduction. If you work less than that, have less than 12 grand,
Mhm.
there's no point in filing a tax return. I think you're actually excluded from that.
Okay.
So odd jobs are like if you're just have children just mowing lawns or something, they'll be okay.
Okay. All right. So you don't have to worry about it. Okay. Let's jump into this question of LLCs,
All right.
and starting an LLC, because we got some questions on that, but I wanted to first preference the conversation for that. For EXPs who work in this industry full time and are moving more to the tour side, like myself, or executing tours or executing management programs on a full time basis, the problem that I had about 3 years in was that I was filing my taxes under my personal social, and I was making so much, and I had to find a way to help offset, some of the money I was making and not have to pay Uncle Sam so much. So my tax preparer at the time suggested that I create an LLC, and create a business, especially if this was something that I wanted to do full time, and I saw myself generating a large streams of revenue, and pursuing real estate, which me and you talked about offline. So for EXP who works in this industry full time, who's making, and I'll give you the chance to give me a good ballpark figure. For me, it was like over 50K a year, and I needed a way to not show, all these 1099s on my personal social, and to help me with that deductions, I created LLC. What are some of the advantages for an EXP who was in my situation, for going ahead and making that decision to start an LLC, as an independent contractor, and when you're looking at taxes?
Yeah. And then did you say you started your LLC 3 years ago?
No, 23 years into the industry, so 2013.
Oh, 2013. Okay, okay, I gotcha. So from a tax perspective. Okay,
Mhm.
cool. So let's see. So the LLC, first off, the primary reason why you want an LLC is for protection.
Okay.
So an LLC, limited liability company, it's actually a legal entity.
Okay.
So, say if you're on tour here, something, I don't know, maybe you did something that offended someone.
You hurt yourself, or you say
Yeah,
something.
or like say if you like had some nice like speaker audio equipment and you dropped it, and now that company's like trying to sue you, and you contracted with them under the contract under your LLC name and not your personal name, right? So
Yeah.
then because of that, and they're trying to sue you, actually the contract was under the LLC. So now they can only sue the LLC for all it's worth. And
Okay.
so say if you have your own car, your own house, that's under your own name, not under the LLC's name, they can't get access to that. So
Okay.
that's the big thing, especially kind of your service industry. Say if you're a contractor too, like just you goes to a job site, you accidentally have like some machine blow up and the homeowner's trying to sue you now. They're just suing, whatever the contract said for the name, which would be the LLC, I would hope, that they structure it that way.
Okay.
So, but besides protection, 2013, there's more advantages then. A little
Mhm.
bit less now is one thing I want to note is there's the 20% pass-through deduction.
Okay.
And this was kind of, established to help offset that the corporate tax rate went from 35 to 21%. So it wasn't fair for like the LLCs, the s-corps like yourself, of
Hmm.
like, hey, should I just be a C corp now?
Yeah.
So what they're allowing now is a 20% deduction on if you have an LLC, even if you're a sole proprietor, you don't have an LLC, that you
Hmm.
get this 20%, pass through deduction.
Hmm.
So really having your own company here it's good to separate the liability, but kind of ever since tax reform, the tax benefits wise is a little bit less, but it's easier to have more business expenses. Don't get me wrong though, under your LLC, because now instead of being under a certain code of what expenses you can take, you're under a different, what can you take as business expenses. So
Okay.
say if you buy a car specifically under the LLC name, and then you have interest on the car, you can take business interest on the LLC.
Mm.
Yeah, so there's definitely more expenses that can be had.
Okay. And EXPs, definitely, if you are one of those individuals that are working, would you say the good amount, Tony, is like if you're working and you're making over 50K a year on your personal, does there an amount that that an EXP should be aware of and say, man, if I'm making at or around this amount, I may need to consider getting an LLC? Is there
Hmm.
an amount?
There not maybe a mountain dollars wise, but maybe a mountain 1099s are issued, right? So 1099 is only issued to individuals, right? And then if you file your W-9 and then you're under the LLC here, right? The person's not required to give you a 1099 now, because they should be invoicing, right? So
Yes, the invoice.
to
Your
to
business.
how many 1099s did you have less after you registered?
A lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's the one thing that's one note. It's like, okay, instead of, because like if you go to a preparer and you bring him a stack of like 15 1099s, for tax services, it's always dependent on how much
Work.
work you have versus just something that's easy plug and chug. You just need someone that really monitor that everything's doing right and looking out for your best interest. So really reduction of the 1099s, like, so if you have like 10,
Mhm.
I mean, not even 10. I mean, like after 5, I would probably get annoyed entering it into the software if I was just doing my own taxes
Mhm.
of like da, 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 type, type, type. But, one thing I do say for leading, a little down in the conversation is that kind of S-corps. Um, or actually, an LLC applies to this. So, say you're in California, LLC costs $800 a year to maintain. I'm not sure how much are they.
It's
How much is it in Georgia?
$60. $60.
60 bucks.
Mhm.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so it's like, $800 on this. It's like, do you really want an LC or not? So something to consider on how much you're paying for your LC, and also how much, the fees that you can do it. It's pretty easy to set up if you do it yourself. If you go to your Secretary of State website,
Mhm.
and then you just follow the forms there. If you want it all simplified, LegalZoom is like, they charge a little. I think it's like a few $100.
Yes, they were gonna charge my niece to do her LLC for Georgia $600.
Oh,
And
it's 600.
yeah,
Oh, dang, that's
I said, come
terrible.
over, I'll help you. And I walked her through the process, and she paid initially to set it up. It was $100, and you go through EXPs to set up an LLC. You go through the irs.gov to get your EIN tax ID number, and then whatever state you live in, you go through that Secretary of State website to set up your official LLC with that state that you reside in. But yeah, that was an hour, and we saved $500 because we just did
Yeah,
it ourselves.
yeah, exactly. It's all on there. It just depends on if you don't have time or you're not comfortable with the paperwork, finding online resource like that, or just, another person to help you out, and pay for it. A lot of companies do business formations.
Hmm.
But it's just more so you're paying for their time to do it. It's all it is.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's pretty straightforward, like you said. So it's weighing out how much fees does it
Hmm.
cost and how much does it cost to maintain.
Yeah.
That's one thing I want to know. But even I'd say something, 50 is a good number, but even like 40, 30, 35 is, might as well just get it, because at that point in time, I would say you're spending a significant amount of time invested into this, and they're accidents. You never know when they're going to happen.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, so EXP is definitely when you are working or you're applying for opportunity, check with the agency first to see first what their payment process is. Do they require you to be a 1099 or a W-2 employee? If they are allowing you to come in as a 1099, at that point you'll have to decide whether working, if you decide to go the course of applying and obtaining your LLC, if you want to work as a 1099 under your LLC or under your personal social. So definitely weigh the advantages and disadvantages. Tony just talked about, some of the advantages.
Oh, Jay. We're back in.
Yeah, we're back in. I don't know what happened.
Oh,
Okay.
uh-huh.
Okay, guys. Sorry about that technical difficulty, but as I was saying, just make sure you weigh the options to pursuing when you are applying for opportunity, whether a 1099 or a LLC is beneficial. And guys, just comment and let me know when you guys come back on the feed. I don't know what happened. But a question that I want to address here: if we didn't have health insurance, is there a form that needs to be filled out? And I'm just going to check to make sure that we are back live in the group while you answer that. Let me just make sure.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. So the question was just, is there a form for the health insurance?
Like,
Yeah.
um, if they didn't have health insurance, because oftentimes there may be EXPs that don't carry health insurance, or because they are 1099 independent contractors, they have to go through the marketplace to
Mm.
obtain health insurance.
Oh
Okay.
yeah. So back before, you would get penalized under it. Now you don't. If you go ahead and do your taxes this year, there's always that form for the 1095 of
Mhm.
saying, what years did you have it, what years did you not. That all got did away. There's no penalties for having no health insurance.
Okay, good. Okay.
Which is good. I always was not a fan of it, but hey, that's another conversation.
Okay. All right. So next question. S corp. So if you have a LLC, if you have been maintaining your LLCs for a while, and you are looking to purchase your first home, you're looking to purchase real estate, you're looking to diversify your portfolio, whether that's with retirement accounts, a Roth IRA, a traditional IRA. What are some advantages to pursuing a S corp versus an LLC, or making, like we talked with myself, making that transition to an S corp?
Yeah.
And
Yes. So,
wait, before you go there, what is an
yeah.
S corp for those people who may not know what the difference between an S corp and an LLC is?
Yeah. So once again, like S corp is just another legal entity. So C corps are one, S corps are one, LLCs. There's LPs, limited partnerships, LLPs, so all different type of legal entities.
Mhm.
So that's what they all are at the end of the day. S corp, if you have an LLC already, there's a way to elect S corp taxation. So kind of what that it's a simple form that you can do to elect S corp, and it needs to be done end of this month. Yeah, um, and what it does is kind of structure it so an S corp can only have limited amount of shareholders, right? I think it's limited to 80 or 100
Okay.
versus a C corp, which is all the big Fortune 500 companies. Everyone can be an owner of that company if you buy their stock. And
Okay.
with the S corp here is, the beauty of it is that you're saving on self-employment taxes, because now the S corp is paying it on your behalf.
Okay.
So, for example, you're an EXP, you make 50,000 through here, instead of, um, so you make 50,000 all under the S corp, but then you have an operating agreement of saying that, hey, 75% of these wages are attributable to these activities, and that I should pay myself 75% wages. So now you're at 37,500 wages that you're paying to yourself. So you're saving the 7.65% taxes on their self-employment taxes, and the
Mhm.
company's paying that. And then also on paper, you look great now because now instead of, you showing up to the bank and with your tax returns, and they're like, oh, you have the, 1099 income. They actually see it as wages because you're self-paying yourself. And
Mhm.
that the beauty of it is like if you do this for 2 years, because banks will always request for 2 years of tax returns, in order to get loans,
Mhm.
and they can see consistency in your, tax return, they're more favorable to give you the loan, and second, a good rate. So
Okay.
it's kind of like structuring it, you're already making the income,
Yeah.
but it's just showing up as a 1099 versus, as an S corp when you're getting your K1, as a partner of this
Okay.
S corp.
So one way to not necessarily beat the system, but make the system work for you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I mean, like, everything here is just grounded in the, the code, anyways, the
Mhm.
IRS code here. So there's just a special, like special set of rules for the S corp that they made. It's for the small businesses here.
Okay.
Hmm.
And EDPs, EXPs. One thing that I do want to point out is the fact that the T and I, through our business, so we have an LLC that we set up, and through our business, because we were making so much under the LLC, we opted to sign up with ADP, which is a payroll accounting service, and every month we pay ourselves a payroll. So because we are employees of our business, Team 100, we pay ourselves as employees of that business so that the state taxes, federal taxes, all of those taxes are taken out on a monthly basis. So that was one thing that we learned through our through our accountant and tax preparer. Shouts out to Bowie, on the best ways to offset some of the income we were coming in, and to make sure that it was reported on our taxes on a consistent basis, so that at the end of the year we didn't run into this problem of, oh man, like we have all this money and now we have to account or take deductions or ways to show that we can show that as income. So that's one way to also do it. And then you can also, like Tony said, you can set up an ADP account, which you can go to adp.com and set it up. And it's going to cost you a fee to maintain that monthly and to be able to run that payroll. But me and Tony were talking about, taking the LLC now and still running the ADP and moving to a S corp, because it'll help us, like he said, with the taxes that we're having to pay.
Yep, you got it. Oh, nice. Yeah, on ADP, that's sweet. Uh huh.
Yeah. So that's something that has helped us out. And EXPs, definitely, if you work on the tour side, if you're making up six figures or upwards of six figures, then definitely like implementing that software is has been a game changer for us. And you can modify the amount that you pay yourself every month. So if you had a slow month and tour season's over and you can't pay yourself as much, you can change and set up everything in ADP in the back end to where you can pay yourself more or less. But as long as you're paying yourself something every month, is important, because the issue that we have is, we want to continue to buy properties, buy real estate. We got to pay health insurance. And as a independent contractor, as a self-employed person, you walk that fine line of showing income so you can get a home or purchase properties, but having affordable health insurance. So what's kind of, Tony, you could chime in on this, on like some tips for that person who's trying to make sure they have affordable health insurance, because if I claim my real income or show my real income in the marketplace, I couldn't afford health insurance, but I want to get a house and I want to start getting investment properties and I need to show income. So what are the best ways to do that?
Oh man, yeah, this is the hard topic, and it is very near and dear to my heart because it's like, parent, like how my parents operate too. It's
Hmm.
just, you're owning your small business, you're working really hard, and you're just trying to get healthcare just to for that rainy day that happens.
Hmm.
And then you're trying to also set yourself up for the future too, right? Rental
Hmm.
properties or personal home even,
Hmm.
and like you said, that's the balance.
Hmm.
So it's almost like I'd probably approach it, and it's kind of stages, right?
Hmm.
So as the first stage here is to help save on health cost, is
Hmm.
kind of like be in that position of, having making enough, but then like having that lower income through all the deductions that you're taking, and then
Mhm.
getting that health care. But while you're kind of progressing and growing, because as time progresses, refining your craft, you're gonna get paid more.
Mhm.
You'll have to start planning because you want that home or you want that rental property. You're gonna have to report more income, otherwise banks will not give you any loans of whatsoever, right? They want to show that, oh, hey, I know this person's good for $3,000 a month. I can give them a loan this big.
Mhm.
And then, at the end of the day, too, right, you can offset your costs through your LLC, right? Because you're paying these. I'm not sure how your health is structured, but the business can provide health insurance to you.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like, yes, the answer is hard in the beginning, just like anything else. You got to pay, save a little bit as you can, but then as you grow, you got pay to play. Is kind of
Mm.
how I kind of go about it.
Okay. We had to pay to play. So is it, I guess, is it worth not deducting a lot on your taxes to be able to show, to be able to show more, to be able to get the properties or obtain your first home? Should we deduct less? Less?
It's kind of like the cost benefit analysis here. So say for example, your health insurance is, in a given year, 12,000 or something like that, and then you that's because your deduct. So say if it's cost of 12,000 because you're showing lower income,
Okay.
and then you find a rental property that's
Mhm.
going to give you maybe 18,000 or something over a given year, and then now you have 18,000 coming in, 12,000 out, but in order to get to that $18,000 rental income, you need to find the marginal difference of the income that's required to pay that. So, for example, say you made $60,000 and you're getting $1,000 a month healthcare, and that's because you're taking a lot of expenses. But now, in reality, that you take less expenses and you're at 80,000. The banks like that, and now you can get a loan that gets you that rental property for 18,000. But now your healthcare costs are up, maybe up to 14,000. So if your healthcare costs don't
Mhm.
outweigh the investment income you're going to get, then I'd advise on it.
Mhm.
But it really depends on each person. Some people also just prefer renting because there's all the additional expenses with the home, just as property tax, insurance, all add up, and then less flexibility.
Okay.
So it's hard to have a blanket answer, but kind of my general guidelines is if the investment offsets the increased cost, then go for
Okay.
it.
Okay. All right. And question someone had, can you write off, like, if you are renting a home or renting your apartment, can you write off your rent that you're paying every month as a deduction on your taxes?
Not if you're just doing purely just rent. There is the home office deduction though. So, the space that is 100% dedicated to opening your mail, doing your
Right.
proposals. That space is
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And then there's in Minnesota there's the certificate of rent paid. So it's kind of like a way for renters to get a little bit more on their tax returns. So that's something to kind of dig around in whatever state that you're in, if there's any deductions on your state return that you can get for paying rent.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know. So we're going to shift gears and jump off the topic of LLCs and S-corps. EXPs, if you have any questions that you want asked, definitely drop them in the comments. We're still here. We'll be here for about another 15 minutes before we wrap up. So get all your questions in by then so Tony can answer them. Next question that we had was the question of filing your taxes, preparing your taxes. Do I need a CPA? And addressing that. What tips do you have for EXP who may want to file their own taxes, who may feel like, hey, I'm capable, I know how to do this, I know how it works. I think I can handle this with I don't, what's some of the tax programs?
TurboTax, H&R
Well,
Block.
yeah, a Quicken. So, do you think EXPs or individuals can file their own taxes? And if so, what is some advice you have for that individual who may be going through that process?
Oh yeah, definitely. If they feel comfortable or they read the forms and feel comfortable, they can definitely do themselves. Don't need like a CPA or an EA or a pay preparer to do their taxes. So my tips would be first to see if you can qualify for the free programs, right? So everyone loves free.
Mhm,
So there's the file free IRS. That's if you make 69,000 or less, and
mhm,
then there is VITA. That's one of the resources the IRS has. It's like so it's volunteer income tax assistance,
mhm,
and the IRS has a website where you can look up the nearest location near you. And if you meet certain, once again, it's meet certain income requirements, then those people actually just do your taxes for you.
mm,
Yeah, so those two programs, once the first is software, the second is people, is to do your taxes for free. Other than that, just if especially, if you have a lot of 1099s, um, get the software that supports it, or if those are generated across multi-state, if you're in 5 6 different states, get the software that can support it. And that's the best suggestion is software is your best friend on this.
okay.
Hmm.
And then with you just said that you have what was someone had a question something you just said I can't remember. I should have asked it when you were talking, but someone asked most H&R Block tax pros aren't familiar with our industry. Who should we seek to do our tax returns? So that was a question we had earlier.
Oh, okay. I mean, if you just looking to seek for someone, so kind of if you're kind of shopping around for, CPAs, EAs, paid preparers, that's first you kind of see what their fee is, right? Is it
Mhm.
kind of in the ballpark of what you're willing to pay?
Yeah.
See what it includes. So some people just get the return done for you, one and done. A more comprehensive is if it gets audited, they'll provide the audit support. It's kind of a certification of the work. Also, like say tax planning too. That's kind of my big thing of like, hey, I see this on your return. For next year, help minimize your liability. Analyze the facts for them.
Okay.
But to look for someone that understands the industry is probably the big thing. Not even the industry, but just the mechanism of it, how it works, right? Because maybe you can just go ahead and ask like, oh, hey, are you familiar with Uber and Lyft drivers or the gig economy? See what their answer is to that. Um, if they're or the shared economy is the other word that they should be familiar with.
Okay.
And then if they're not, that's fine. Nothing against them. Just more so have them like say, oh, give them your fact pattern. Like, hey, I have 7 1099s, 3 W2s. This is what I do. Ask them what kind of deductions or what kind of tips and tricks do you have for me?
Okay.
Because it's more so the more annoying the person is, the better they are.
Okay.
It's because of like how analytical they are. So
Detail too, right?
yeah, detailed. Yeah, do they know what kind of applies, right? Yeah, if it's like I do a lot of real estate myself too, so I'm very familiar with all the deductions. If you're doing 1099s of like, oh, what industry do you do, or what expenses are me trying to understand? How do you operate? Maybe if they ask you like how do you generate this income? There's a way to see what expenses that you can take and help get you covered. So, really, kind of think about and ask some good questions and see how they reply.
Okay. My question that I have for you was, and EXP, just so you know, the resources that Tony provided a few minutes ago with respect to being able to file your taxes on your own or get assistance from the IRS for filing your taxes, I'm going to put those links in the comments in the description box of my YouTube video. But what I wanted to ask you, Tony, was those people that if you go through that program and you are granted the opportunity to have someone do your taxes for you for free, are those people recommended or referred by the IRS? Are they like certified under their system?
It's actually like it's all volunteers, so
Okay.
they're not like tax pros, but they're interested in taxes. So in college, being like a accounting major, this was like one way for us to learn. But there's like a supervisor that oversees it all, so it's not like just some random Joe doing your thing. There's supervision on it.
Okay,
But
good.
they may not have like all the thoughts of like, oh hey, I know that you'll travel a lot. You have all these little fees that kind of pick up. You use your car a lot. They may not have that part to it. So that's one thing to note.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Question we had. If the EXP, what we says, looking to buy their first home of investment properties, when they're filing taxes, what are some things to keep in mind? I know we covered that already, but is there anything you want to add to that? Or,
Investment properties.
or their first home, like when they're filing their taxes, is there some things they should keep in mind or remember?
So yeah, the it's like so you want to do definitely so your personal. So I guess it's two different answers, right? Your personal main home, you can only do figure out your itemized deductions. So for your home wise, your the mortgage interest and the property tax, see how much that gets you, and then compare that against that 12,200 standard deduction. But when it comes to rental property time, a little bit more different of a ballpark, right? First, you figure out how much rent you got, and now you're subtracting in the interest that you have to pay on that loan. You also have to factor in property maintenance cost. If you pay a management fee every month to someone to oversee your property, and then the big kicker is the depreciation. You're depreciating your property over 27 and a half years. So you should pick up a loss hypothetically on that. Utilities, anything that you're paying out of your own pocket for your tenant. So once again, it kind of goes back, for the EXPs, the track, regardless, right? All the expenses that are associated with that.
Okay.
Repairs is a big one too, from what I see on the real estate.
Okay. Question: Do you technically pay a double tax corporate Do you technically pay a double tax, a corporate tax on your LLC and a salary to yourself as an employee in the employer's contribution, or is it one or all the tax deduction able in some way?
Let's see here, loaded question, but let me try to take a stab at it.
Okay, I'm trying to. Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So no, there should be never be double tax unless you're C corp. In general, there should. It kind of goes you know, against the principle of double taxation. Only C corps get double taxed, where first the company pays tax, and then that dividend to you gets taxed. That's if you own it.
Okay.
But that's C corp, right? And it doesn't really apply to us or most of us. So first off, if we have W-2, you have income taxes withheld from your employer on your wages. So that's where you're kind of paying your income tax already. And then next is your 1099 and your LLC. So say if you have LLC, to pick up all your 1099s there. And then finally, once you figure out revenue minus expenses is your net profit, and then that gets picked up on your personal income tax return. And then you pay tax on that. So no taxes at the LLC level. It's all a pass-through entity.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Next question just came in. When you have your own LLC, is it best to file your taxes quarterly or annually?
Um, this might be, let's see, I'm trying to think. So the tax return, the 1065 for the partnerships for LLCs is only due once a year at 415 unless you extend, or 315 unless you extend. However, if you're purely, an investor or like one of the partners of this LLC, then if you're not paying any estimated taxes, then that's quarterly. So that's what I think they're trying to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, Erica, could you clarify a little bit? This question just came in from her, and I'm reading it on Facebook because I want to, make sure I have the names. But Erica, just clarify your question a little bit, and we'll come back to you. Tony wants to know what's the clarification you need, kind of what.
On quarterly, yeah. I'm just a little bit confused on quarterly. Like the partnership return for the LLC, the 1065 is just filed once a year, just
Okay.
like your income tax return for your personal.
Okay. All right. If
Mhm.
you still have questions, Erica, just drop it in the comments and we'll get to it. Someone just said, I just purchased a home and the banks will only consider your EXP income if you have 2+ years in each respective company. And the fact that we go from company to company, it makes it hard to show consistent income with one agency.
Yeah, that's that. I hate that. Some of the bank rules, I don't know. I'm just one of those people like, hey, you work hard. You obviously have the money to pay for it. Otherwise, you're not going to buy a house. No one's that silly. But this kind of goes back to the point. Yes, banks don't like that because it doesn't show that you have a consistent stream of income, so they are not comfortable knowing that their house is going to get repaid.
Mhm.
But instead, kind of, what you're doing, Jay, right here is like
Mhm.
get the 1090, like all your contracts, as an EXP is under your LLC or your S-corp, and
Mhm.
that you pay yourself from that LLC every month or every 2 weeks,
Mhm.
a consistent salary, and then post it out that way. And then 2 years of tax returns will come and be like, oh, hey, your wages have pretty much this year was like, 50, nice. It grew up another 10% next year, 55, and they'll have that
Mhm.
nice steady income. So that's really where this LLC bridge will help, the EXPs that are just out there working as a sole proprietor.
Okay. Next question we had was, do you feel that the new tax laws that the president has put in place benefited or hurt the EXP, the gig industry, the experiential marketing industry? Is it to our advantage, or does it help? Does it hurt us in the long run?
But I guess it depends. I mean, that's the classic accounting tax person answer, but it's not too bad if you're on the lower or the higher side of income ranges. It's not, in my personal opinion, I don't think it's good for the middle class. That's my personal opinion because, the tax rates are gradually going up until 2026 until the tax reform ends.
Mhm.
And then we'll see what the tax rates will, come out to be then.
Mhm.
But I don't think it was beneficial for, the middle class workers.
Okay.
Hmm.
And then for EXPs who are still trying to figure out the best way to maneuver through their taxes and find a great CPA or someone who could file their taxes for them. What do you feel is some advice or something that um, price wise, like, is paying $1,000 too much? Is paying 500-600 bucks? I know it's going to depend on their individual situation and the amount of 1099s or W-2s, but I've seen some crazy $2,000-3,000 prices, like for someone to do their taxes. Like, is there an amount that um, you would deem as like a red flag that you should kind of like be aware of, or?
Yeah, I think so kind of usually for taxes is just kind of the complexity of the tax return. So, W-2, full service kind of like, planning and audit coverage, kind of seeing those in like the $300 range. You step it up with more 1099s and W-2s mixed together. You're kind of in the, the $400-600 range, depending on how much there is to do. And then businesses get quite up there actually. So say if you have an LLC and there's quite a bit of activity, those are probably mm, 800 plus.
Mhm.
Basic ones are, if you just have one for set of real estate where it's just like rent, depreciation, interest, and that's it. Those are 600-ish. So I mean the couple thousand, 1,500 plus, it's kind of like crazy. But for individuals, if you're only doing a 1040, you know, and you don't have something crazy going on, it shouldn't really pass, an $800 mark ever.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that $1,000 that you saw was for.
Yeah, yeah. A guy was telling me like 1,000 for my personal and 1,100 for my business. So combined
Right.
like 2,200. I was like, that's expensive, you
Yeah,
know?
it's pretty pricey, and I mean, I'm not sure like how. I mean, but the personal usually stays pretty easy unless you're like investing in stocks and you have a lot of securities.
Mhm.
So pretty much the worst fact pattern. Oh, and then if your books are crap, then the fees tend to go up too. So usually, how little amount of time that the person needs to invest is usually how it goes.
Okay.
But yeah, that's definitely kind of red flaggish for me. I mean, there's some people out there. Don't get me wrong. There's like the companies that, when I worked for, the big accounting companies. Boy, was it even it was a mid-sized place too. We were at 1,800, $2,000 for a simple tax return.
Wow.
So it does get up there. Don't get me wrong, but for what we're doing here right now, we're just
Yeah.
all hardworking people, and we're not doing anything crazy, I would not expect anything for $1,000 for a personal tax return.
Okay. Good.
Even if you have 15 1099s, for God's sakes, it doesn't take them that long to make sure that it flows and actually goes through okay.
Okay. EXPs, you hear that? So just make sure you are, Tony talked about earlier, vetting people, CPAs or different companies, asking them those questions and asking them how much it's going to cost, before you just decide to have them do your taxes. The last thing you want is for them to do all this work and then they're giving you a bill for a crazy amount and you're not even getting that amount back in your return. So you definitely want to make sure that you are asking those questions prior to having someone prepare your taxes.
Yeah, because you kind of just scoping out the quality, right? If I'm paying $1,000 for a personal tax return, I expect I'm getting some Nikes, not like if I was going to pay $100, I'd be like, "Ah, okay, I can get some like Skechers or something." But that's kind of like what you're paying for. It's the quality of the product and your return in the person. Are they really looking out for your best interest?
All right. And speaking of best interest here, Tony, talk about your website, the CPADude. Talk about some of the services you offer to EXPs. I'm going to drop a discount code for EXPs in the description in the YouTube video. So definitely, guys, be on the lookout for that. But just talk a little bit about your business and how you can assist EXPs with filing their taxes this year.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm just www.thecpadude.com. Pretty straightforward, and my usual clients are individuals and small businesses. Just my personal knack is when you save individual small businesses even a few $100. I enjoy that. You can see it in the joy in their face versus like big companies. A few $100 doesn't matter that much to them.
Mhm.
So those are my normal clients there, and offer full range of services, tax preparation, tax amendments. So like if your return was wrong, yeah, I'll help you amend it. um, Pretty much the whole gamut too, bookkeeping, payroll, do the whole good bezo, help out on everything. And I'm always willing to just shoot me messages. I'll reply back, tell you how to do it for free. I don't really care. It's like, oh, people usually just find me once they like I don't have time for it or it's too complex. Even if like you want to form your own LLC, send me your state. I'll get you the links. It doesn't really matter to me.
Okay.
Hmm.
Someone, I'm gonna go back to your information in a minute, but someone just asked, what is the best tool to keep up with our receipts? Is a photo sufficient? Erica, we talked about this earlier, like Expensify, QuickBooks is good. Tony, you mentioned, I think, what was the one you said again?
Expense tracker, that was a tool.
Yeah.
Whatever, well, whatever works best for you is kind of what I recommend. Mint has that too. Mint's free, and then you just gotta go in and like attach the picture with it. So that's a free solution too. The other solutions, kind of paid ones are you have some better reporting. That's what I normally see.
Mhm.
So it's up to you. There's tools like that, or keep it simple. Just take a photo, drop it into some folder of yours, and keep it there. So definitely tools on Mint, Zero, QuickBooks, Expensify. All these are great tools.
Okay. And for EXPs who want to go ahead and sign up to take advantage of Tony's discount, he's going to be offering $50 off the preparation of any EXP's taxes for 2019. So EXPs, you definitely need to take advantage of that. I'm going to drop a link to his calendar in the description and in the Facebook comments as well for you guys to not only sign up to have him do and prepare your taxes, but to have a free consultation with him as well. But Tony, for EXPs who are looking to take the route to go ahead and have you, excuse me, prepare their taxes for them, what are some things they need to go ahead and get in line and get ready for you? Or
Oh,
not just EXPs, small business owners or contractors, or just anyone. You can be working a W-2, I mean, not W-2, you can be working a regular job and you're still looking for someone that you feel comfortable preparing your taxes and you saw this video and you love Tony and you feel like he would be the great guy to do it, him and his team. So just walk them through some of the things that they need to get prepared for you, for you to prepare their taxes because you work remotely and you also are based in California. So um, EXPs can reach out to you then. But go ahead and just about that info.
Yeah. Yeah. So just kind of high level checklist, just you usually at least last year's return, get the year before would be great. Just like I usually just kind of take a look to see if it's accurate and all that. Then if just normal 1040, what we need to do, W-2s, 1099s, 1098s, any interest forms that you got, any equity statements, stock statements that you get. That's usually the gambit for that. Usually takes care of individuals. Businesses having a nice books and records is kind of what we're here. Unless you prepare your own trial balance, like telling me this is how much we made, these are the expenses here. So having those and just the previous year's returns kind of really gets us going right away. And then the more years back, the better. Just so, I mean, this doesn't apply to me. It applies to just all tax preparers, so they can really see, oh, okay, hey, last year, you had this car with 1,000 miles deducted. How come you? Well, actually, that's a little. Yeah, 10,000 miles deducted, and then it's like, oh, how come you only like have 3,000 deducted this year? Analyzing those trends to make sure that you're getting the most.
Okay.
So really, the more historical information that you provide, it's the better, and then a better set of like books, invoices, receipts. That's always great.
Okay. And then EXPs too, if you are accounting for your expenses yourself, if you're using a software like Expensify or QuickBooks, just printing out, that end of the year statement, right, would be sufficient to submit to Tony. Or if you're using an Excel um, spreadsheet, just having that Excel spreadsheet printed out as well is good, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Question: do you have experience with cryptocurrency investing?
Cryptocurrency invest. I don't, but my buddy does. Yeah. He works with me here. So, yeah, each person has our own specialties too. But yeah, crypto is a very sensitive
Mhm.
topic right now with the IRS. In general, though, is don't get confused on if you actually have a taxable event, right? So, say if you bought Bitcoin for 1,000 and it went up 10,000, did like it went up, but you didn't actually have a gain of that 9,000, right? The only time you have a taxable event is if you actually sold it and you have cash. So that's
Mm,
like the one general thing that's a little bit confusing for some people. Pretty straightforward, but yeah, definitely. Send me an email too. Be glad to forward it on and then see what we can find out for you.
okay. And I'm gonna drop your email address in the comments too for everybody to reach out to you. And have any other questions that they have, they can reach out to you then. But generally, what is your turnaround time for someone who sends over all the required information and for you to file their taxes? Is it like a week or a couple days?
Usually kind of depends on our current workload right now. So right now we're early in the season, so it's okay. You're like weekish, kind of as it builds up on though with the time, depending on how late the information comes in. We'll try to always shoot for the 4:15 deadline, but we will extend too if we can't meet it if the information comes in late.
Okay. And question someone asked, if they have to file an extension for their taxes um, outside of the April 15th deadline, like how long can they file an extension?
6 months.
6 months. Okay. And then
But
after
you have to
that,
pay by 4:15 though.
huh?
You have to pay your taxes by 4:15, but the information related to the payment is due 6 months later.
What if you can't file your taxes by 4/15? Can you?
You're going to incur penalties and interest.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay.
Hmm.
So you have to try to file by 4/15
You have
or
to pay your taxes and file an extension by 4:15. Correct.
okay, good to know.
Hmm.
All right. I think that's it for the questions. I'm gonna give EXPs a couple more minutes. If you guys have any last minute questions, we'll answer them. But definitely, guys, make sure you share this video with other EXPs, with other small business owners, with other contractors. I'm gonna give Tony the floor in a minute for any last words, any last tips, any advice that he has for you guys. But also in the description of my YouTube channel, I'm going to put all the links, all the free downloadable checklists, Tony's calendar, Tony's contact information for you to reach out to him to take advantage of the opportunity and the $50 discount to have your taxes done. If you just don't want to do it, I'm going to be reaching out to him this year as well. But EXPs definitely take advantage of this free information. I'm so thankful and appreciative of Tony for taking the time to come on tonight and just share all this knowledge with you, because at the end of the day, you have to know and you have to be knowledgeable and aware of what you need to do on your end, to make sure that you're setting yourself up financially, and even when you're looking to prepare your taxes and you're working in this industry, and just understanding the different ways to acquire a home or invest in different things, or even make sure that you are deducting the right things so you don't get audited. And this is why I have these conversations. This is why I have the community. And this is why we bring experts on like Tony to discuss these different topics. So EXPs, everybody's saying thank you, Tony.
Oh, wow, thank you for having me. This has been fun. I love to nerd out. And I mean, every morning I read the news, like tax news. So it's just fun nerding out here.
So uh, give Tony all your love, your thanks for tuning in, and just for taking the time to do this. But I'm going to hand the floor over to him with any last minute words or advice that he has for EXPs or contractors or small businesses. And then, guys, make sure you check my YouTube channel out because I'll be dropping all the resources in the description. All right. So take it away, Tony.
Awesome. I just thank you for having me today. It's been great. Just kind of pointers to look out for. For the XPs here is just making sure. I sound like a broken record, but recording what you make, because that may be different from a 1099 yet. So don't trust that. You can trust but verify. That's my saying is. And then also besides that, it kind of goes back to really having a system. Mint is free to know your expenses and track that, because anyone else you bring this to, as long as they have the data to work with, they'll be able to help you out. So that's just to look out for, and I really recommend like kind of just thinking about it more and talking it through, that the LLC should almost be structured right away for the EXPs, because pick it up as your 1099, and then because you're paying yourself wages, and it'll look really good on your tax returns and then for your investments in the future.
Okay. That's good advice.
Yeah, so I think that's, going back to that dollar limit thing, I don't think there's a dollar limit anymore, because I think you're just going to come out positive on this regardless, especially after that one comment too about, hey, I have a house, but they don't like how I don't have, a normal W-2. It's just silly how the banks work. I remember since the crash, it's been like this. But yeah, you can show them what's up now, because, hey, I have a normal paycheck, $800 coming in every week.
Okay. So EXPs, I hope you guys learned something. I learned something, and I just appreciate Tony for taking the time. As always, guys, you are a brand within a brand. It's BWAB. So make sure you always represent yourself accordingly. And if you have any other questions or comments, feel free to reach out to myself or reach out to Tony via email in the description. All right. Enjoy the rest of your night. Be safe. And thank you again, Tony.
All right. Thank you. Talk
All
soon.
right. Bye.
Bye-bye.